Okay, I think it's going. Everybody say hi.
Hey.
Heyo.
Hello.
How's it going, everybody? So, little explanation of what the hell we're doing here. People have been asking me for, what, 4 months now? 5 months now? Are you gonna do more tabletop stuff? And I've always said, I really want to, but I want to make sure that I get the right group and that, you know, I don't want to commit to anything before, before my availability is figured out and I'm a little more settled. Well, I'm as settled as I'm going to get for the moment, which is to say I'm actively getting hit by cars now. And as far as committing to a regular schedule and all that stuff, I said that can come later. Let's just do one-shots for a while. So I put out the invite on the Land of the Blind Discord for players who are interested in, you know what, I should put up, you could tell this was all slapped together at the last minute because I am a terrible, terrible pre-planner. And finally, I just said, I gotta just do it. Just do it.
There you go.
But just quick word about what the thought process is, what we're trying to do here. So we are using, at least for this first one shot, we might swap around different systems for a while. I would not mind trying out a few different systems, but at least for this first one, Monster of the Week is a system that I've used before. It's what I used for the Escape from Mount Xavier one-shot, back with TFS at the table, and it's really pick-up and play friendly for new players, and it seemed like a good place to start. And then the elevator pitch that I kind of gave to everybody on the Discord was, if everybody out there, if you haven't already read a piece I wrote on Medium called A Farewell to Eloy, about what the character of Eloy meant to me. Yeah, that's kind of what I want to do, is create opportunities like that for people to have a really personal connection with their characters. To, if you got some shit to work through, like, this is the thing. This is something that always happens to me without me necessarily realizing it. Because the character I could have written, I mean, it wouldn't have had to do with my brother, so it might not have been quite as intense, but I could have written something pretty similar to that about my character before Eloy, which I played with the Loading Crew in a Pathfinder campaign. Character named Joey the Mountain McGeezax, who was a gnomish war priest, and and that was all about, to me, that was kind of saying goodbye to my Catholic upbringing and trying to make it a fond farewell and not like a bitter farewell. So that's kind of where I'm at. I am going to be DMing at least this first one shot. And today all we're going to be doing is creating characters. This is just kind of a prep session, just talking about ideas and what we're wanting to get out of this, creating characters, because I plan to craft the one shot around the characters, whereas previously I did it the other way around. The couple of one-shots that I've DM'd, I did the one-shots, I did, created the, got some general ideas from the players, like, hey, what sort of character would you like to do? And then I made the plot, and I made characters to fit, and I handed out character sheets. I want to do it the other way around this time. Make characters first, and then I'll try and craft a plot to fit that. So I've been kind of dominating the talk here. Let's go down the list here. Easteroon, introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Ista. I have been a gamer since the ripe old age of 13 in AD&D. I since went on to step into the games industry, then step out of the games industry into hospitality, but I've never lost my love of gaming.
Awesome. And one thing that I sort of asked and in case you couldn't tell, this is super slapped together at the last minute. So we are figuring this stuff out as we go along, which, speaking of which, I'm just gonna get in here. Ista's coming in just a little quieter than everybody else, so I'm just gonna boost him on my end. Hopefully that should balance us here. But one thing
I can start yelling.
One thing I asked everybody to think about was in much the same way that I had kind of a personal connection with Eloy, to try to think about like some kind of moral issue or personal thing to use as a basis for the character. Were you able to come up with anything like that?
I know the thing that I've always struggled with the most in my life, from when I was a very tiny Ista until today, is I will always throw too much of myself into my projects, into my work, into other people, and sort of give until I break. And it crosses into my writing, it crosses into my personal life, it crosses into my professional life, and it's something that I've always struggled with, and it would be interesting to try and tackle that in the fantasy setting where, you know, the stakes aren't even real, but we still end up sending these characters we love sometimes into horrible situations, and trying to take that and step away even in the fantasy realm and create space even for my characters to relax and be a little less fanatical.
And you know, there's a few ways that this can go. I don't feel like we need to be like slavishly devoted to this character concept. It's a place to start is all. So going down the line, we've got Kyodai Shojin, who's been helping out a lot around the channel. Created the lovely Kyodai bot that's been helping keep track of things during my Link to the Past randomizer streams. Say hello to everybody, Kyodai.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Kyodai. You guys have all seen me around the channel. Programmer. Been doing that for about 5 years. Enjoyed D&D for quite a while and kind of wanted to do a session like this. Kind of the thing I figured I'd tackle. Personally, you know, I've dealt with self-confidence issues, and a little thing generally known as imposter syndrome, where you kind of explain away your success. You know, everything is luck, or thank God somebody helped me with that, right? Just kind of that not being able to tell that you actually did something. So kind of going for a character that might suffer from that a little bit, a little crisis of confidence.
I can dig on that. So yeah, something else to establish here, I guess, is we have done a bare minimum of like pre-gaming or pre-discussion between ourselves. So this is kind of like, I want this to be something where it's kind of transparent and everybody is involved from the beginning. But I'm gonna drop a link in the chat if you're interested. Imposter syndrome is something that, I mean, I think a lot of us suffer from to some extent or another. Certainly something that I can relate to. And I'm just dropping a link to a video that I just found. But it's one that I always link to whenever the topic comes up. It's a video that Dr. Tom Seeger, who I consider a personal and professional mentor, he's actually a big reason that I moved to Phoenix. In particular is, I mean, A, because it's closer to my family, but B, because he lives here in Phoenix and I looked forward to being able to spend more time with him. But it's a little video that he made just explaining the concept and some of the causes of imposter syndrome. The way he describes it imposter syndrome often happens when you are experiencing exponential growth. Because when you're experiencing exponential growth on that growth curve, you feel like you're not getting anywhere. You're working so hard to lay this foundation, and you're not feeling that upward growth until all of a sudden it feels like it all kicks in, and then your personal, professional, whatever kind of growth you're talking about just skyrockets. And it doesn't feel like I'm doing the same thing that I always did, and all of a sudden I'm more successful. What is happening? Oh no, people don't understand. I'm just faking my way through all of this, and any minute it's all going to come crashing down, and they're going to realize I don't know what I'm doing. Oh no. Would you characterize that as a description of your experience, Kyodai?
Yeah, and that's kind of how it is. And I saw it more often than not in my professional career. I didn't really have what you would call the programming background, and I fell headfirst into a programming job. So I often felt from the beginning like I did not belong among other programmers. But I would say probably within a 5-year period, I've gone from what would be considered a junior programmer to somewhere like mid to senior level, like someone who can teach others. And it did seem kind of quick.
Well, I wouldn't know much about getting thrust into a job for which I had very little training and was largely ill-prepared for. Team 4 stuff. What? Excuse me. Pardon me. Spazwaza, last but not least, tell the people something about yourself.
Hey, how we doing, everybody? My name's Ian Jones. I'm known on Twitch and in the Discord as Spazwaza. I would say, if anything, the thing I kind of identify with at least with one of the nebulous character concepts I came up with, was a feeling of a kind of a squandered youth. I had a lot of fun growing up, and in high school, I didn't really take school that seriously. I didn't go to college or anything. I figured, having work experience will make up for not having a degree, and has not panned out quite as I hoped it would. Kind of bouncing around between jobs, hoping to find something that would turn into a career, and nothing has really stuck yet. And one of my two ideas is kind of an older fella who has a little bit of that, God, where is my life gone sense to him.
Makes sense. Yeah, that is also something that I can relate to as somebody who, speaking of my medium writing, if you read one called The Father of My Children, it's not a huge theme in there, but it's definitely something that I feel. I describe a 9-year relationship I was in, and oh boy, that whole portion of my life, like all of my 20s basically, I don't have a whole lot of regrets. And it's not so much that I regret that part of my life, but I regret that it lasted so long before I learned various lessons about myself and the way the world works. And I think I can be a slow learner, and I think I could probably have started that particular journey a good 5 or 6 years earlier, and I'd be better off today. But all right, so like I said, we are going to be playing with Monster of the Week. I've got my hard copy of the book here in front of me, and I did pass around a PDF copy to all of our players. How much of it did you guys get a chance to take a look at?
I read in the main playbook everything up until the point where it started on the Keeper stuff. I didn't want to, spoil anything, so I just stopped there. But I read all of the Hunter playbooks and the basic moves and the rough outline and all of that stuff. And I went on their website and I looked at a bunch of Hunter playbooks for some of the sort of expanded hunter rolls.
Kyodai and Ista, is that about where you're at too?
Probably a little bit less than that. Just
Yeah, it
with
was
the amount of free time.
Playbooks and the basics of how to play and the general premise of the game.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's fine. I did say in the Discord, here it is. If you have the time and are interested, reading the book is optional because, like I say, it's super easy to just jump in and figure it out. There's really only one kind of dice roll, which is 2d6 plus your relevant stat. A 7 to 9 is a mixed success. A 10 plus is an unqualified success, and 6 or below is a miss. And that's basically how it. All you really need to know. I do have a couple of house rules. So according to the vanilla rules of the game, the DM does not roll any dice. The players roll all the dice. The one exception to that I'm instituting is investigation rolls, since I think part of the fun, since oftentimes it can be a mystery, part of the fun could be giving misleading information, incomplete, or even in the event of a miss, totally wrong information. So I don't... if you roll a 2 on your investigation check and I tell you, oh yeah, the bad guy is definitely Old Man Wilkins, guilty as charged, that guy, I feel like it's more fun if you don't have to do that double think of what does my character know, what do I know, herp derp. So that's one house rule. Another house rule that I like is an adaptation of the D&D 5th edition advantage-disadvantage system, because that system is just too useful not to use. Since we're using D6s instead of D20s, the way it works is if you have advantage, roll 3d6 and remove the lowest one. If you have disadvantage, roll 3d6 and remove the highest one. So slightly, it's not quite as powerful a swing as in normal 5th edition where you're using 20-sideds. I think that's okay. I think that's about right, considering it's an extra system that I'm just kind of bolting on to this existing rule set.
Yeah, sounds doable.
It seemed to work well in Xavier.
Yeah. And finally, the I know a guy rule has been making the rounds. We can totally use the I know a guy rule. There are some class features, depending on which way we go, that will that give you explicitly like, oh, here is a guy that you know. You have this ally or contact. If you want to choose that feature, I don't want to make that redundant. So if that winds up during character creation being an attractive prospect to you, go ahead and choose it. And what I might wind up doing is if somebody without that feature tries to use the I know a guy when somebody else has a class feature that's similar, might just give you disadvantage because it's not your area of expertise, but you sort of know a guy.
Yeah. Plus, usually the hunter moves that move along the I know a guy route tend to be people within your own faction. Like if you're the professional, you're contacting a superior or a scientist who works for your organization or whatever the hell. With the general, the looser I know a guy rule, it could be just someone you know from miscellaneous means, kind of outside professional avenues.
I know a guy, but the last time we met, I kind of tried to shoot him.
Should we explain the I know a guy rule for if anybody listening doesn't know what it is?
Oh, yeah, we absolutely should. So the I know a guy rule, see if I can find a link for that.
I think it's up a little in the Discord and the tabletop channel. I linked to the tweet where at least I first heard of it.
Yeah, there's here we go. There's a Sage Advice page that has all the tweets image capped here, but short version, it's the metaphor that gets used is in Empire Strikes Back when the Millennium Falcon is stranded and they're looking at the star map and Han says, "Oh, Lando, I know a guy. We could see if Lando could help us." It's meant to give an opening to do that. If the players are in a jam, one of them can say, "I know a guy," and then we kind of on the fly have to collaboratively make up a new NPC. But the catch is, much like with Lando, you know a guy, you're not 100% sure if they'll be able to help or if they'll be willing to help. So once we decide who this person is, what it's going to take to get into contact with them, once you get in contact, you roll a charisma check. In this system, it would probably be a manipulate someone check. And depending on how you roll, they might be like, "Hey, buddy, yeah, come on in. I'll give you a hand." They might want something in exchange, or they, like Lando does when he trolls Han at first.
You got a lot of nerve showing your face here.
Yeah, they might say that, but be dead serious. Like, "Oh no, turns out it was a mistake to tap this particular guy." So it's kind of a risk-reward thing. Yeah, that's right, Kooky. Could sell you out to Darth Vader for all you know. So that's not a rule that I've used in the past, but it seems like a fun rule, and I mean that's what this is all about, is experimenting. Trying out new things. That's the fun of one-shots. Pretty low impact, low barrier to entry way to mess around with some fun new stuff. So this is the last time I ran anything with this system. Like I said, I did all the prep work myself. So this whole collaborative, because the game assumes that, just like we are now, we're going to kind of sit down and figure some stuff out together. It assumes that you're going to do it as part of your first session. I think I would like to do at least a little more planning than that, so we're not going to get into any actual play today. But the first question that it wants us to explore is, do we have a team concept? Do the players want to already know each other, to be like Supernatural style? And for those who don't know about Monster of the Week, by the way, it's very much in the genre of like Supernatural, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, X-Files, that kind of serialized modern fantasy / sci-fi genre TV. There can be overarching arc plots as a one-shot, not so much here. But largely episodic, like here's your Monster of the Week, here's your Mystery of the Week to solve. And yeah, the book does a lot of specific references, especially in the different hunter classes. It'll straight up say, yeah, this is basically Xander from Buffy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has a pretty cool looking leveling system, which, we probably won't get into with it being a one shot, but I would be interested in experimenting with this system for an actual campaign sometime.
Yeah, definitely something I'm considering. Oh, speaking of which, so yeah, we're not going to mess with the experience system since it is just a one shot. The other house rule, so there's a luck system, which is very much balanced for an ongoing campaign, because it gives you, I think, 6 or 8 luck points that you can spend, but that's over the course of your character's entire career. Instead of that, I'm going to give you each 2 luck points that you can use over the course of the adventure. And the way luck works is, the idea is, the less luck you have in the bank, the more things are going to tend to go wrong. So the reason why I settled on 2 was so that you could spend 1 and there's not going to be any like big negative consequences. If you spend that second luck point, be careful, because once you're out of luck, that's exactly what it sounds like. You're going to start getting disadvantage on more rolls. The monsters are going to stop pulling their punches. That's when it's going to start getting serious.
All right. 2 luck works for me.
That on the sheet here.
Yeah, and at this point, I think I'm going to try to do a little window capture here, because I've just got a little, text file. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, make that just a little bit bigger there. And I'll just share that with the people at home, so they can kind of see what I'm doing while I'm doing it. Just move that over so it's not covering chat. There we go. There we go. All right. So, and we can... The book wants us to do this in a certain order. We can kind of jump around. If we would rather just jump into character creation and then decide based on what y'all are wanting to play, whether it makes sense to have a greater team concept, like pre-existing relationships, we can do it that way. What are you guys feeling?
I kind of feel, depending on what you guys, if you guys have any character concepts in mind so far, that might work better, kind of laying out the general ideas we have for characters, and if we have if it seems like we could make some plausible connections there, kind of go with a team theme from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, building our way up with tiny bricks as opposing to looking at an entire wall.
Yeah,
makes sense. So that being said, so it sounds like you guys have all at least leafed through the different character classes that you have to choose from. What's standing out to each of you? Because that is one of the rules, is that you can't double up on character classes. Each one is, since it represents a certain archetype, you wouldn't have a Buffy show where everybody's the chosen one. Likewise, you can only have one of each character class.
Yeah, I think for mine, the spooky with the dark side mechanic seems to be pretty good for the whole psychological issues thing.
And for me, the professional plays right into the thing that I want to tackle, especially with that whole bottle it up ability. It seems to be spelling right into what I have a problem with doing too much.
I was looking at either the expert, which I'm a big fan of, or the monstrous, which I have a concept in mind for a character that I like, but I not super a fan of the stat lines for monstrous. I might lean more toward that if we would be willing to permit kind of tweaking the stats a little, moving some of those numbers out of weirdness into other things.
Yeah. So the stats, by the way, there are 5 of them. There's charm, charisma, basically. Cool, which is as in cool under pressure, not as in Joe Cool smoking a cigarette. Sharp, which is basically intelligence. Tough, which is physical strength and or toughness. It's basically a combined strength and constitution stat, and tends to govern physical combat. And then weird, which is basically your magical attunement. And yeah, it is the monstrous class is, it's basically like the token monster on the team, like your Angel or your Spike in Buffy, or trying to think of an example. I mean, Hellboy is basically a team of nothing but different breeds of monster, but like that, your token good aligned monster. And yeah, all of the stat options that they have all have +3 to weird.
How do you do, fellow kids?
Yep, it sounded like we got a... Hold on, I don't have my alert box here. Oh, Dragon Kurosk giving us the raid there. Thanks, Dragon. Just add that alert box to my overlay. There we go. Just pop it up there. Yeah, OBS is so weird. I get the sound of the alert box, even if the even if the visual's not there, but it should be there for next time. All right. So let's leave. And do you prefer, for the purposes of this, do you prefer Spazwaza or do you prefer Ian?
Whatever's easier for you guys. Ian might be less of a mouthful to be saying frequently. I'm not picky.
But since you've got a couple of different options that are kind of calling out to you, what if we kind of left you for last and see how the other two shape up, and that might kind of inform what you think would work best in the dynamic. But if monstrous is really what you want to do, we can. Oh my God. I'm open to tweaking some stats a little bit.
Okay, yeah, I could probably go last then and see which of the two ideas might fit better with the other two.
All right, so let's kind of flipping over to the professional here. Let's kind of focus on Istas first.
The glories of having the first name in the alphabet.
I know all about that.
Yeah, so the professional is like a Riley in Buffy. It's somebody who works for a professional, sometimes a government organization, agency, something like that. So, did you have? And you don't have to, but yeah, it can be something like FBI, CIA. It can be military, paramilitary, mercenary, a corporation, a scientific team. Did you have a concept for who you would work for? I guess would be the first question to ask.
I was probably thinking something less official than CIA, FBI. It would be something either not acknowledged or it would be some sort of private organization, but that also flows a lot into what the other people I'm playing with want to do as well, so I didn't put too much thought into that. Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean that's one reason why I wanted to tackle that first, because that leads us into another big decision, which is everybody working for this organization, or is it just you and these are outside contractors or contacts that you make over the course of the investigation? How Kyodai and Ian, how do you feel about the idea of working for an organization? How would that gel with your concept?
One possible idea I had in mind for the expert is that it was a former member of an organization who either got, fired or left on bad terms for his own reasons, and now he's just kind of an unofficial outside contact for a few people he knew while he was there.
Well,
yeah, I mean, my character I was thinking was going to be something more of a younger man. So probably if it was an organization, a more junior member. But it could also just kind of be like happenstance. Maybe happens upon some sort of situation that these professionals have gone to and ends up kind of getting roped up into the group.
Just making my notes as we go here. So, yeah, I like already the way that dynamic is shaping up. I like the idea that some of these characters might have some kind of a history together. So
need an old monster hunter and a young monster hunter.
I need an old priest and a young priest.
The power of RNGesus compels you.
Well, I think if you guys are professional and expert, then that makes me the young one.
All right. That being the case, let's think a little more about. Well, sometimes story can also kind of flow from mechanics too. So as I'm looking at this under the professional, you can pick 2 resources, which are kind of the advantages of working for this this organization, and 2 red tape elements, kind of the disadvantages. So maybe the next thing to do would be to pick those if there's anything that calls out to you, and that might kind of inform the nature of the organization a little.
I kind of like the idea just out of red tape, interdepartment rivalry, because that is the realest thing in any business, any profession, anything with money's involved. It doesn't matter if their lives on the line. Some person is going to put something else in front of lives. And so that just seems like, especially when we're going with the whole idea of, sort of pushing morality and psychology here, that seems to sort of flow into it. That was one of the ones I had looked at.
All right, so let's mark down intradepartmental rivalry. Or I wrote down inter. It is 2 different things.
Yeah, man, that's fighting amongst ourselves. That's real bad.
Yeah. That could also, if Ian's expert, you could even, instead of being a former member of that same department, you could potentially be a former member of the rival department, which could build some conflict into the group potentially, but not so
true.
much that you wouldn't be able to work together at all.
Oh, they'd be sniping at each other all the time. Oh, that's how they did it over in that department.
All right. So that's one red tape element. As far as the resources go, is there anything that's calling out at you?
I don't know. I'm never a fan of like recognized authority or official pull type things.
Okay.
It makes things feel too easy.
Okay, so you don't want to be the kind of guy who'd be able to walk into a crime scene and flash his badge and get immediate access.
No, that seems but that's my take on it as well. Is I always like to do the roundabout route. Think outside the box.
Okay. Well, that being the case, what about since you're not going to be able to walk in an official capacity, what about cover identities then?
I like the idea of cover identities. I like the idea of having good intel. I like support teams, but I have no idea what support teams would mean. Support team sounds fun, but then so do weird tech gadgets. There's a lot of good options here. Like I want a Q on my team that gives me like a little pin that shoots out a dart that makes an electromagnetic web.
Yeah, well, and that is one thing that we're going to learn about this system is that there aren't a whole lot of hard and fast rules. It will just give you prompts, ideas, like weird tech gadgets. It doesn't give you a whole list of tech gadgets to choose from with different stats. It's just, hey, this is the kind of thing that your department has. Figure out the specifics as you go. And that can, if we want to just mark down for now cover identities and weird tech gadgets, like that gives, when I introduce you guys to the situation at the beginning of the actual play session, once I've had a chance to plan, like that can already give me some ideas of, oh yeah, what if the first scene was just you, like in a James Bond movie, here's your weird gadget that will probably come in handy by the end of this movie.
Here's your Zelda dungeon item.
Yep.
Please use it wisely.
It's a spinning disc that fits into these particular slots in this particular temple and nowhere else, because that's good game design.
Yeah, one of the options, one of the resources, I should say, that the expert gets is a haven, which is like a hideout basically, and they give you all these options for what you want, what kind of facilities you want your hideout to contain. You get to pick like 3 of them, and one of them that I was definitely going to go with if I go that route was lore library. So that could make up a little for your organization not necessarily having good, reliable intelligence. We'd be able to do some research in the lore library if necessary.
Yeah, and I've got a little bit of ideas for my class that will go far in information gathering.
Okay, cool.
All right. So we've got 2 resources if we're going with cover identities and weird tech gadgets. And we've got 1 red tape. Let's pick 1 more red tape, and then we can switch over to Kyodai's spooky for a little bit and establish some things. That's kind of how I want to do, is just like kind of hop from character to character, filling in the details as we go.
So would cryptic missions be like Inspector Gadget exploding cigar, like this message will self-destruct in 15 seconds, but it's a limerick?
Well,
I mean,
now that you say it,
yeah,
how
when,
can
when
we
you sell it
not?
to me like that, how can I say no?
I think that's just going to be it.
Rule number 1, never get the DM ideas.
You gave him a fully formed idea, too.
All right, so marking that down, let me just flip my book over to the
Maybe that's what caused some of the interdepartmental rivalry, was that the one faction had their mission briefings in limerick form, the other one did haikus. It became a whole split.
All right, so yeah, let's hop over to Kyodai's spooky character for a second here, and this is kind of going out of order, but so the spooky character is typically has some sort of magical, telepathic, paranormal ability that's not entirely under their control. Think. And often has to do with some sort of either outside influence, like a sort of like a warlock patron in 5th edition, or like a hidden dark side. So this is jumping around a little in the character creation process, but looking at the dark side ideas, did you have an idea for where your powers come from?
Yeah, I mean, some of the tags, depression, obviously, guilt, and probably paranoia, I think would probably speak well to that kind of imposter syndrome.
Okay.
That may have been one of the things that I considered beforehand.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, didn't want us to come in with a pre-made character sheet, because that would kind of kind of defeat the purpose of doing it collaboratively. But it's good that you came in with ideas. So yeah, the way this works. Yeah, so if this is kind of where your dark side comes from, the way this works is that I, as the DM, the book calls it the keeper, whatever you want to call it. I always say DM because I also came into this from AD&D, where it was always Dungeon Master. GM tends to be the more generic term. But I can, when you're using your powers, I can sort of say, all right, you're using your spooky powers, but along with it comes this feeling of guilt, this feeling of paranoia, which compels you to do something. And then you can either, as the character, you can either choose to do it. You don't have to, but if you don't, you might lose your powers for the rest of the mission, or until you give in and do the thing. So it's kind of a built-in story hook there. Okay. So
yeah, so I guess it has to be really something that I have the option of caving to later.
Yeah, it's typically, I mean, it would probably also depend on where in the story it comes. If it's getting close to the end of the session, I think it's a little easier to justify, like, no, this is your one chance, or else it's less fun if it's like right at the beginning, well, do this thing, this is the point of no return, or else have fun playing the rest of the session with none of the fun powers that you chose, with no option to go back and change your mind. Like, yeah, that's not a super fun way of running the session.
Yeah, and as my luck gets depleted as well. You get to make more outrageous requests. So right at the beginning, they would be more tame.
Yeah, absolutely. Empole, thank you for the sub, baby. All right, so that gives us something to go on with the spooky. Let's jump down to Ian, and we've kind of been speculating as if you're going for expert, but if you do want to be monstrous, I think now would kind of be the time for us to switch gears here. How are you feeling?
I'm a little torn because I like the monstrous the character concept I have in mind for monstrous, but I feel expert. It sounded like it might be a better fit for the group.
Well, how about this then? If and I don't know, it sounds like you've got something of a concept already come up with. What if we sort of split the difference? What if your monstrous character was also, for story purposes, a former member of the rival department? Would that work?
I think I might just rather go with expert.
Okay.
For the former member purposes. I had kind of a with the monstrous I had in mind was like a vampire, so I had something of a backstory in mind for him already. He was going to be like a gunfighter in the Old West at the time he was turned.
Oh man, I want an Old West vampire.
I know, right? It's a thing you never see in media.
Yeah, can we override his choice?
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, I mean, we can totally go Old West vampire. That is totally fine.
Yeah, I suppose I could give up having a sweet hideout.
Yeah, I think there are mechanics to where you can choose options from other classes. I don't know if the monstrous has anything.
It does, but they're not like pick at the start things. They tend to be leveling up things.
Yeah.
There is something borrowed where you may take a move from a hunter playbook that is not currently in play, which would cover expert.
True.
Yeah, I mean the question then is just is it worth it to you to give up, because that's coming from your list of monstrous moves?
Yeah.
So, but I mean the idea of a lore library is like that can be a cool idea. If you are a vampire who's been around since the Old West, for storytelling purposes, you could be assumed to have a base of knowledge that the other two might not have. So we can still maybe like bake some of that into your character idea still.
Yeah, true. It might not be a lot of formalized writing, but he might have notebooks going back a couple hundred years.
Yeah. So, okay. So we're going to go monstrous Old West vampire.
Most interesting character award already. Seeing Worldwide Wimpy in the chat. He can't be out at high noon anywhere.
Yeah, so one of the things we haven't really touched on stats yet at all, but maybe now is the time to start, since it's something that you mentioned. You mentioned maybe wanting to tweak the pre-rolled stat lines a little to maybe not go quite so hard in the weird magically attuned direction. What were you thinking?
I was thinking maybe shift. I was looking at the the middle line of the stats, which is +2 charm, 0 cool, -1 for sharp toughness, and then 3 weird. Like all of them are locked into. I was looking at maybe putting the weird at 0, bringing the tough up to +1, and then the it would give me one more point to play with. One in cool, so do like +2 charm, +1 cool, -1 sharp, +1 tough, weird 0.
Now, the interesting thing about your weird, though, with the magical library, that gives you a lot of options for casting spells, which go off of your weird.
Yeah, I do like some of the magic in the game. Sounds cool. I just don't think this guy in particular would be that magically attuned.
Okay.
Yeah, it sort of feels like if you're... I'm almost wondering, like at that point, is it more that you have the character in your mind as you know, this Old West vampire that goes back, you know, a couple hundred years or however long, as a role-playing option, or is there something in the mechanics of the curses and the monstrous moves that's calling out to you?
It's more a role-play thing. It certainly doesn't help that within the monstrous roles, there's only like 1 or 2 things that make use of weird, but primarily it's... I think magic would kind of be beyond him, something he never really tried to wrap his head around.
Gotcha. I'm almost wondering then if it wouldn't... If it might not make sense to just give you the stats of an expert and just fluff it as you are an expert who is also a vampire for role-playing purposes. Would that be something that you'd be interested in?
Yeah, probably. There was a hang on, let me pull up the expert stats here.
Yeah, because it sounds like mechanically expert is more like what you're trying to accomplish, instead of trying to, you know, beat the monstrous mold into the shape that you want to beat it in. It might be easier to take expert as a base, and as we go on, if you want to kind of like mix and match a little between the two classes, like drop a couple of your expert features in favor of just 1 or 2 monstrous features, I think we can swing that.
Yeah, probably the closest stat line in expert that would work for him would be the middle one there, the 1 charm, -1 cool, +2 sharp, +1 tough, and weird 0.
All right. Let me just mark that down. Stats are charm +1, cool -1, sharp +2, tough +1, weird +0. Okay. And at that point, let's go ahead and hop back to Ista's professional, and let's go ahead and choose stats for you as well.
Alrighty. So the 2 that I was looking at was the +cool, -sharp, +tough, -weird. Or What was the other one? The cool +2, sharp +2, tough -1, weird -1.
Okay. Is that the one you want to go with?
Yeah, this is the hard part because I'm trying to sort of suss out how smart my character is when I'm picking this,
Yeah.
and so I'm almost tempted to have my person be just like super not charming too, and take one of the ones that has minus charm. Then I have to talk less in game. Now, I think I'll go with that one, the +2 cool, +2 sharp, -1 tough.
What
-1
a
weird.
fine day for
So,
science.
very mundane.
Gotta head
very
out
not
myself.
magical, just
Here's
sort
to a
of
great run of tabletop
a
games.
person who
D.
does stuff.
Thank you, Yodanashi, for the bit drop. All right.
More of a thinker and an investigator than an ass kicker.
Yeah, a little bit more, and that's the downside on that -1 tough.
Yeah.
All right. So we got charm +0, cool +2, sharp +2, tough -1, and weird -1. All right. And then Kyodai, what are you thinking stats-wise for your spooky?
I'm thinking of it in terms of also the moves that I'm thinking about giving the character. But I'm thinking the middle line, +2 charm, -1 sharp, -1 tough, and then 2 weird. Probably will end up working out best for that.
+0, sharp -1.
This boy's not going to be your tank.
Yeah, well, nobody's super tanky, but this is not really this is really not the game for tanky in any case. Like, that is the other thing about Monster of the Week for those at home who might not be familiar. Damage matters. It's not like hit points where as long as you have one, you're up and running and fine. Like, every bit of damage you take matters, and it does not take much for you to go down. Typically speaking, just direct physical combat with the main monster of the week tends to be a really bad idea. If you're just going toe-to-toe with it, I mean, good luck. Typically, you want to try and find something to turn the odds to your advantage, whether it's, ambushing him, figuring out a weak point, setting up booby traps, something like that. I was slightly disappointed. I think I gave in the Xavier one shot, I think I gave Bride's character a rocket launcher, which he never wound up using.
Jeez.
But yeah.
Gotta save that for the final boss, though. That stays in your stash tab the entire game.
Yeah, well,
that's the elixir. You never use it because you may need it later.
well, when
I mean, did he have it at the end? I probably would have just used it at that point.
Do you know the end is the end? That's the problem.
well,
I think they knew it was the end at that point.
yeah, by the time you're in that flying saucer. All right. So let's see. Let's hop back down to Ian's expert. Getting down to the point where we might want to start choosing. So you said the lore library Haven was calling
Yeah.
out to you. And you do get to choose. So lore library is, yeah, you get some +1s to investigate roles when you're trying to hit the books, do your research. As long as it's something where historical or reference books could conceivably give you an advantage. Is there anything else on that list of Haven perks? Because you get to choose 3 of them anything else that's jumping out at you?
Yeah, I was thinking Armory and Oubliette.
Okay, so the armory gives you, just a stockpile of rare and/or mystical monster-killing weapons. If it turns out that you need something to like, oh, this thing's weak against silver. Do I have a silver broadsword? Roll the dice to find out. And then Oubliette is sort of like a magical cage or prison cell or what have you. If you manage to capture something alive, you've got a place to stash it where it's not getting out or being detected by, if it's a minion, like its master wouldn't be able to easily find it. So go ahead and mark those down.
Yep. The Oubliette is where you throw people when you want to forget about them.
Yep. Or if one of your friends happens to be a werewolf, it's where you stash them that time of the month so they can't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
All right. Let's head back up to Ista's professional.
Give me 1 sec. I gotta let the cat out.
So, Ista, by default, you always get, since you are part of an organization, you can request resources, backup, and there are mechanics to decide what kind of help that you get. You also get 3 more special moves based on your class. You mentioned that Bottle It Up was something that called out to you.
Yeah, that just, it sung to me with that character concept of, putting too much into your work. That seems completely what Bottle It Up is sort of meant to do.
Yeah, so the sort of catch-all, there are a limited number of moves that people can use in this particular system, and one of them is called Act Under Pressure. That's kind of just the catch-all, like anything that is difficult to do or difficult to do under the circumstances. It might be something like, well, all you've got to do is punch a code into this control panel. The problem is you're in the middle of a firefight. This is tough. Roll to Act Under Pressure. The way Bottle It Up works is that you can, at will, take up to a +3 bonus while acting under pressure, but because you're bottling up whatever you're dealing with, that gives me, the DM, however many +1s you take, I get to later give you a -1 on a later roll. So you're handling it now, but it always comes back to bite you in the end.
Yep.
So
at the worst possible moment.
Yep. Any of those other moves that are calling out to you?
The idea for No One Left Behind seemed like a neat one. There's Unfazable, which just makes me cooler, also.
Yep, cooler under pressure.
Yeah. Those are both good. Thinking from a character standpoint, No One Left Behind seems to make sense. The other one is, I'm trying to avoid stuff for that, like thinking mechanics wise and thinking very much about character.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if a good last one would be mobility or just going with Unfazable for the final one.
Okay, well I'll mark down.
I mean, because we can always call an Uber, so it seems kind of funny to have my own car.
We assume.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, because
no cell signal.
that's how all the really top-notch vampire hunters get around is Uber pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the advantage to having your own is that you can customize it with some stuff. You can You know, it can be a stealth vehicle, it can be armored, stuff like that you wouldn't, I mean, you know, if you want to spring for the Uber X, it's your money, but...
Yeah, it's the company's money. That's what we call an expense.
I like that you can pick that it's both fast and slow.
Yeah, let's go with that whole James Bond Inspector Gadget thing that I've been thinking of in mobility. And
All right.
we'll get a tricked out Scooby-Doo mystery machine.
All right, so with that, you get to choose 2 good things about your mystery machine and 1 bad thing.
Oh, I kind of want to start with the bad thing.
Ooh, go for it.
Loud, obvious, temperamental, beaten up, gas guzzler, uncomfortable, slow, and old. I mean, half of this sound like the same thing. So obvious would be something like the mystery machine. It's painted in bright, you know, like neon orange colors.
Yeah. I mean, if the idea is that you are operating under a cover identity, that could be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that we haven't really talked about.
Bad. Let's go with temperamental, because that's that whole lovely thing where I can't get it started when I need to escape from a situation, right? That seems to lend well to the moment. Let's go with a temperamental.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling this has to be a van.
Well, the obvious thing doesn't specify obviously what. It might not necessarily be obviously your organization so much as just a big obvious vehicle. Like,
It's an ice cream truck.
Yeah, it's an ice cream truck.
It can totally be an ice cream truck if that's what you would like your cover to be.
It used to be an ice cream truck. It's no longer an ice cream truck. Now that's stuck in my head.
Oh,
We're gonna have to come up with a better name for this, like, Mystery Machine Mark II thing.
Oh, now it used to be an ice cream truck. Now it's the ice cream truck.
God damn it.
No,
Ben.
I did this to myself. Okay, so let's take intimidating and stealthy off of the good things. Kind of like the idea of it being like sleeping space if it is a big van.
Okay.
Plus, I imagine if this is kind of based off the Mystery Machine, you know they were sleeping in that thing all the time. They didn't have a house.
Oh, yeah. Only when they weren't fucking in it.
Oh, yeah. You just look at Shaggy and you know he smelled like popcorn, shrimp, and ass.
Look, there's 3 potential ways he could be paying his way, and it wasn't it wasn't gas.
Yeah.
I don't know. For the other one, it would be... What's the difference between armored and tough, I wonder?
I would think tough, like maybe I'd be able to handle some rough terrain without falling apart, versus armored's gonna be if something attacks.
I like
Or
the toolkit, though. Sounds pretty all right.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it would fit with your gadget theme.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Let's hop down to Kyodai's spooky at this point.
I hear a good boy in the background back there.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a good boy.
Okay, since we're starting to get more into mechanics things at this point, so you get to choose 3 spooky moves. Is there anything that's jumping out at you there?
Telepathy. So that will allow me to investigate a mystery or read a bad situation without having to talk. And I can also manipulate somebody without speaking.
All right. Got that down. What else are you thinking?
Oh, let's see. Jinx sounds pretty cool. I can encourage coincidences to occur. That one's a double-edged sword. If I roll a 6 or lower, you get to encourage 2 coincidences instead.
Ah. Okay. So yeah, kind of a Scarlet Witch Hexbolt type thing.
Something to that nature, yeah.
All right. And you get one more.
I'm a little torn between tune in or hunches, or possibly even premonitions. I feel like premonitions would be more useful in a longer campaign, though. That's a start of the session sort of thing.
Yeah. Which in a one-shot means you get it once.
On the other hand, tune in is another one of those double-edged things.
Yeah, you can try and...
It's a little bit less so. I think it kind of works with the telepathy, though, so I might go that direction.
All right. Go ahead and mark down tune in. And hopping back down to Ian's expert here. So you get... So by default, you'd get 2 expert moves. And I'll say, since you've got this monstrous, this vampire character concept, if you'd, well, because you also get 3 monster slaying weapons by default as an expert.
Yeah.
I'll say, yeah, it feels like that part of the expert's kit is not quite as... Well, I don't know, maybe, because you can get... it's where you can get your guns if you want to be an Old West gunfighter.
Yeah, as far as the equipment, most of the expert stuff was fine. I was going to ask if maybe I could substitute... the expert list has Magnum. If I could just swap that with a 38 revolver off of the handy weapon list for Monstrous, because if he's a gunslinger, he's got to have that Colt revolver.
Yeah. That's totally fine. I think the stats are almost exactly identical anyway.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think the Magnum has 1 more harm compared to the 38.
Yeah. But one of the other 3 was going to be a shotgun anyway, so.
So 2 revolvers and a shotgun.
Well, probably just the one revolver, the shotgun, and the mallet and wooden stakes.
Interesting. A vampire carrying stakes.
Mm-hmm.
So you are a vampire hunting vampire then.
Oh, did I not mention he was a vampire hunter who got turned against his will?
No, okay.
Oh, that's
You did not know.
All right. And then, as far as the
I like it.
Yeah.
He's like, this changes nothing.
And then as far as the expert moves go, you get 2 expert moves by default. If you would like to swap one of those out for a monstrous move instead, as kind of our little hybrid class that we're creating here, that would be fine.
Let's see. I would be fine with if we're saying he's the vampire just for flavor purposes, not really getting any of the stat perks that come from, like, immortal or unquenchable vitality. We just say it's assumed he's immortal, but he doesn't get to suffer 1 less harm from it and whatever. And probably just go with two expert moves.
Okay.
Looking at off and right, and dark past would probably be appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, You say dark past, but dark past is specifically about having a past dabbling in the mystical arts, and it did sound like you wanted this guy to be less magical than one would think as a vampire. It's up to you.
Yeah. I don't know. Of the sample questions they give there, it looks like only one of them is kind of inherently magical. What black magic do I know? The rest of it seems like kind of general purpose stuff.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. So yeah, okay. We can go with often right and dark past then.
Hey, I know a guy in those questions.
Yeah, so we might, since you're the only one who's really been going down that path, we might just be more likely to give you advantage on I know a guy rolls, while still giving the others the option.
Right.
If they have
So
something.
if he rolls really badly, do we end up in front of someone's grave and you just go,
Typo. Make that I knew a guy.
All right, I think. Okay, yeah. So we've still got the professional, Ista's professional gear to choose here. Did you have So you can choose between.
I think I was gonna go with the flak vest, the submachine gun, and the 9mm pistol.
Black vest, submachine gun, and.
Not based off the gear that they carried in the first Resident Evil movie at all.
9mm pistol. All right. I think jumping all around and going entirely out of order, I think we might be close to done with all our mechanical choices. Just double check.
I think Kyodai still needs gear?
Ah, yes, you do.
Yep. Let's see, I get 2.
Yeah, any 2 normal weapons from the list.
Yeah, I think probably my idea is trying to keep the danger away from me, so if it does get close, I'm going to need the close range stuff. So let's go shotgun and big knife.
Okay. Shotgun and big knife. Okay. So that's let's see, yeah, we got the gear for. All right. So that's all the mechanical stuff. At this point, it might be good to hop back and start thinking a little more about story and background, and this is also stuff that, because I gave you guys less than a day to mull this over and specifically instructed you don't get too married to anything. But starting with you, Ista, do you have any general feelings about your character's backstory at this point? Their history?
It's been long enough that they've been at this job for at least like 5+ years that it's sort of become a career for them. They have to have seen at least enough bad stuff to know better, but to keep coming back and doing it anyways. So late 20s, early 30s for them. I'm almost wondering, like they signed up to be a monster hunter right out of school, not really knowing what it was. The job description was a little, vague about it. And just sort of, well, I signed up. I don't want to hop jobs too quickly because it'll look bad on my resume, and then people will ask questions, and they just sort of stayed.
Yeah, if it's not a super legit, recognized organization, probably couldn't put it on your resume anyway, so it would just be a big hole in your job history.
Yeah,
you really drove an ice cream truck for 5 years.
Yes. So it seems like that's about as far as I got, is someone that sort of signed up for this, not entirely knowing what they were getting into, but they feel they're in too deep to leave. and they feel bad if they left their team, because then if I stop doing field work, then someone else is gonna have to go out there and get fire breathed at them and spells hurled, and they're just sort of stuck where they're at.
All right, and then same question, Kyodai. You'd said that your character would probably be the youngest in the group, either a very junior member of the agency, or possibly just stumble onto them through happenstance. Have you come to any conclusions there?
I'm kind of leaning more towards being part of the organization, but again, very new to it.
Okay. And did you have any ideas for how did your character discover their powers? Have they always had them?
That I wasn't all the way there on yet. I was kind of thinking that it would just end up being something where it's like, oh, woke up one day and suddenly this happened, or maybe some attack happened, an event with the supernatural that caused it.
All right, I'll just put a question mark next to that for now. And
Yeah, I wouldn't think it would be from birth.
okay. All right, and then Ian, sounds like you've got some ideas about your character's background. What have you got?
Yeah, I mean, depending on how in depth you want me to go, I'm cheating here a little bit because I'm kind of adapting this guy to the Monster of the Week system. This is an idea for a character I've had in mind for a good while and not really done anything with. That started off just as thinking of, man, you never see any Old West vampire stories. That seems like it could be cool. And I just kind of wrote him out from there. The Cliff's Notes version of what I had in mind for him is that he was a vampire hunter in the Old West who ran afoul of his, vampiric nemesis, who rather than kill him, decided to humiliate him. Basically, turned him and dumped him in the town square, and he clawed his way to the doorstep of the local church in this little, nothing Wild West town. And the kindly old priests took him in, and he kind of lived in the church basement for a good number of years as he recovered and figured out what was going on with his life. And when the old priest died, and there was nobody around really to fill his shoes, he was like, all right. And he put on the collar and played priest. Doesn't really have faith, but was willing to act as the kind of sympathetic shoulder to the town and give, kindly advice, do mouth service sermons that they seem to receive well enough.
Okay. All right. And at this point, we're going to go around the table, and there's this history, which is specifically talking about group history. What are the connections between our group of people? So, Ista, you go ahead and start.
Okay, so
for
do we
each of
look
the
at
other two.
the other classes and look on their charts, or do I look on my history?
You look on yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, romantic potential. I don't think I'm gonna go harem anime. They're on the watch list. Oh, you're related. Met on a mission. That seems like me and Kyodai might have worked on a mission together unofficially, and it worked out well. They've worked with the agency before, and they're well regarded. That might be Bazwaza.
Yeah, I could.
Friends in training before the agency recruited you? No, that doesn't seem like anyone. Pulled me out of a terrible Fubard mission. That seems interesting. And got sent to deal with them. So I don't know. The Fubard one might be interesting for the Old West vampire to have saved my bacon at one point.
Or for the spooky.
Or for spooky.
Even.
both of those seem like I almost want to combine that with the unofficially work together.
You could have even been sent to deal with me at one point.
Yeah, let's just roll all three of them together.
Okay, so sent to deal with.
But then tackled some bigger threat, worked good together, reported back, hey, this spooky guy's not so bad.
All right. And then with Ian's Old West vampire.
Let's see.
Yeah. And you know, if there's nothing that's jumping out at you that really works, we can
just feel free to make something up.
Make something up, or I can arrange, since it seems like Ista and Kyodai's characters have a history together. We can, and Ian's vampire is kind of the odd man out. We could arrange to I could arrange to have you meet each other for the first time as part of the adventure, if that feels more in character for you guys.
It might work out that not necessarily that we all know each other, but that Ista is kind of the linchpin. We both know him, and we kind of meet through him.
Yeah, that could work. So, or it could be as simple as, well, you know, the more I think about it, let's leave Ian's character's relationship with the other two. Let's leave that a question mark for now, because I feel like I kind of want to mull that over and see if maybe I want to tie that into the plot of the mystery.
Okay.
All right. Cool. Well, I feel like it was a good idea to do this as its own session, because we've been going for like an hour and a half now, and I would not want to start a whole one shot that can often last, 2, 3, upwards of 3 hours.
Yep.
Already at minute 90.
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay, so we haven't set a definitive time to actually do the session. But how does same time next week sound?
I could do same time next week.
Yeah.
Works for me.
All right, putting it down on my calendar. And in between now and then, something that we haven't done is think of names for any of the 3 characters. Did any of you have names in mind?
I did.
Okay.
Elmer Reed. The dorkiest sounding name.
Elmer Reed. All right.
I got nothing. Last time we did this was for the Pathfinder place test, and I just went, biscuits, and that ended up being my name.
All right.
Okay. Calling it now, that is officially your agent's nickname that he doesn't like, that the other agents gave him, like, hey, biscuits!
Oh.
his first day at the agency, they told the new guy to bring donuts, and he brought biscuits because they're healthier. Guys, come on! Now we're gonna be doing field work. We gotta stay in shape. Just have a biscuit.
We gotta have something light. Get the carbs in, but not the sugars.
Yeah.
Oh.
God damn it, biscuits!
Look, this has real butter. This has Irish butter, that good stuff with the good fats to get you energized. All right.
I'll come up with a more official name other than the nickname by next session, but I think biscuits might be. I'm sure it'll show back up.
Ian.
Nathan Silver.
All right, marking it down. Nathan Gravy Silver.
Oh, no! no, it's a buddy cop flick. Biscuits and gravy. Oh.
All right, guys. Guys, thanks for joining me and trying to figure out this weird, ill-prepared thing as we go. Thank you, everybody out there, for watching. I'll have actually, I will have actually figured out something for our one-shot mystery next time, 3 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, next Tuesday. See you there.
All right, take care, everybody.